I came home to find my pregnant wife crying, a needle mark on her arm. Our HOA president had just injected her with something, without permission. Within hours, we were racing to the hospital. Our baby's heartbeat was failing. That injection changed everything, and what police found in her house made my blood run cold. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital emergency room flickered above me as I held my wife Sarah's trembling hand. Her face was pale, twisted in agony, and her other hand clutched her swollen belly, 7 months pregnant with our first child. "Please," I begged the nurse rushing past. "Someone help her." But I already knew we might be too late. The damage was done. And it was all because of Karen Whitmore, our HOA president, and her unforgivable act of cruelty. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Sarah and I had just moved into Maple Ridge Estates, a quiet suburban neighborhood that promised safety, community, and the perfect place to raise our baby. The houses were beautiful with their perfectly manicured lawns and white picket fences. The streets were clean, lined with old oak trees that provided shade in the summer. The neighbors seemed friendly, waving as they walked their dogs or tended their gardens. It looked like something out of a magazine, the American dream come to life. We'd spent months searching for the perfect home. Sarah wanted a place with good schools nearby, a big backyard where our children could play, and a safe neighborhood where she could take walks with the stroller. When we first drove through Maple Ridge Estates, her face had lit up with pure joy. "This is it, David," she'd said, squeezing my hand. "This is where we'll raise our family. Can't you just picture it? Emma playing in that park over there, us having barbecues with the neighbors, growing old in a house filled with love and laughter." I could picture it. I wanted it too. So we'd scraped together every penny for the down payment, signed the mortgage papers with trembling hands, and moved in on a sunny Saturday morning in March. Everyone except Karen Whitmore seemed genuinely welcoming. Our next-door neighbors, the Johnsons, brought over a casserole and offered to help us unpack. Mrs. Chen from across the street gave us a potted plant for our front porch. Even the teenagers down the block waved hello. But Karen was different from the start. Karen was the HOA president, a woman in her late 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair that never seemed out of place, expensive designer clothes that screamed of wealth and status, and a smile that never reached her cold blue eyes. She had this way of looking at people like they were beneath her, like she was doing them a favor by even acknowledging their existence. From the moment we moved in, she made it clear that she ran this neighborhood with an iron fist. "Your mailbox is 2 inches too tall," she told us on our second day. HOA regulations state it must be exactly 42 inches. Fix it by Friday or face a $500 fine. Sarah, being the kind soul she was, just smiled. "Of course, Mrs. Whitmore. We'll take care of it right away." But that was just the beginning. Karen found fault with everything. Our garden gnome was inappropriate lawn decoration. Our car was parked 3 inches over the driveway line. Our curtains were the wrong shade of beige. Every day brought a new complaint, a new fine, a new threat. I wanted to fight back, but Sarah kept saying, "Let it go, David. We don't need the stress. Not now, with the baby coming." My beautiful, patient Sarah. She was glowing with pregnancy, her dark hair longer than ever, her smile brighter despite the constant harassment from Karen. She would rub her belly and whisper to our unborn daughter, "Don't worry, little one. Everything will be perfect for you." It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed forever. Sarah had been feeling under the weather, nothing serious, just some fatigue and mild headaches that her doctor said were completely normal for her stage of pregnancy. Her doctor had prescribed her prenatal vitamins and told her to rest, drink plenty of water, and avoid stress. She kept the medication in our kitchen, clearly labeled with her name and dosage instructions, right next to the calendar where we'd marked off each day until Emma's due date. That morning, before I left for work, Sarah had been sitting in the nursery we'd just finished decorating. The walls were painted a soft lavender, and we'd assembled the crib together the weekend before. She was folding tiny baby clothes, holding up each onesie with such love and wonder in her eyes. "Can you believe she'll be here in just 2 months?" she'd said, her hand resting on her belly. 2 months, David. We're going to be parents. I'd kissed her forehead, told her to rest, and promised to be home early so we could start on the baby shower invitations together. That was supposed to be our evening, sitting together, addressing envelopes, dreaming about our future. Instead, at 2:30 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Sarah, and her voice was shaking in a way I'd never heard before. "David, please come home. Something terrible has happened." My heart dropped into my stomach. "Sarah? What's wrong? Is it the baby? Just come home," she sobbed. "Please, David. I need you. Something's very wrong." I broke every speed limit getting there. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I ran 3 red lights, my mind racing with terrible possibilities. Was Sarah bleeding? Had something happened to the baby? Was she in labor too early? When I burst through our front door, the scene before me made my blood freeze. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her body shaking with sobs, her face buried in her hands. Her arm had a small bandage on it, and there was a tiny spot of blood seeping through. Karen Whitmore stood in our living room, her arms crossed, her designer handbag on our coffee table, looking more annoyed than concerned. She was tapping her foot impatiently, as if Sarah's tears were nothing more than an inconvenience to her busy schedule. "What's going on?" I demanded, rushing to Sarah's side. Sarah looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen, her face pale with shock and fear. She could barely speak through her tears. She gave me an injection. "David," she stuck a needle in me. I told her no, I tried to pull away, but she. "An injection?" I couldn't process what I was hearing. The words didn't make sense. Karen rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. I'm a retired nurse." I saw her looking tired and thought I'd help. I gave her what I thought was a vitamin B12 shot. "It's perfectly safe. You gave my pregnant wife an injection?" My voice was rising, my hands shaking with rage. "Who do you think you are?" I was trying to help. Karen snapped. She looked exhausted. I told her it would give her energy. She should be grateful. Grateful? I turned to Sarah. "Did you ask for this? Did you want this?" Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She came over to complain about our trash bins again. She said I looked terrible and that she knew exactly what I needed. Before I could say anything, she pulled out a syringe and she just did it. She grabbed my arm and injected me. I tried to stop her, but she was so fast. The room spun around me. This woman, this monster, had forcibly injected my pregnant wife with an unknown substance. "What exactly did you give her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Karen waved her hand dismissively. "It was just B12. I buy them in bulk online. Very affordable. She'll feel better in an hour." "Online?" My heart was pounding. "You gave my 7 months pregnant wife an injection from some random online source, without her permission, without consulting her doctor." "I told you, I'm a nurse." "Well, I was, before I retired 15 years ago. I know what I'm doing." I grabbed my phone. "I'm calling the police and an ambulance. Right now." Karen's face finally showed a flicker of concern. "That's completely unnecessary. You're overreacting, as usual. This is exactly the kind of dramatic behavior I've come to expect from you too. Always making mountains out of molehills." "Get out of my house," I said quietly, dangerously. "Get out before I do something I'll regret." "Fine," Karen huffed. "But you'll be hearing from the HOA board about your hostile attitude." And your trash bins are still not regulation distance from the curb. The moment she left, I called 911. The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes. The paramedics took one look at Sarah's medical history, learned about the unauthorized injection, and immediately began running tests. They checked her vital signs, asked her detailed questions about how she felt, and started an 4-line right there in our living room. "We need to know exactly what was in that syringe," the lead paramedic said, his voice serious and urgent. "Ma'am, do you have any idea what symptoms you're experiencing right now?" Sarah's voice trembled as she answered. "I feel hot. My heart is racing. And there's this burning sensation spreading from where she injected me. It hurts. It really hurts." The paramedic's jaw tightened as he recorded her symptoms. "We need to get you to the hospital immediately." "Sir, do you have any idea where this woman got the medication?" I shook my head, my own heart pounding with fear. "She said she bought it online. That's all I know. Some bulk website. She wouldn't give me any other details." "Did she tell you the dosage? The brand name? Anything?" "Nothing. She just kept saying it was B12 and that I was overreacting." The second paramedic was already on the radio, calling ahead to the emergency room. "We have a 7-month pregnant female, unauthorized injection from unknown source, presenting with tachycardia, fever, and localized pain. ETA 7 minutes. At the hospital, doctors rushed Sarah into examination. Multiple specialists appeared, an obstetrician, an infectious disease expert, a toxicologist. They moved with controlled urgency, their faces grave as they reviewed Sarah's symptoms and the circumstances of the injection. I paced the waiting room, my mind racing with terrible possibilities. What if it wasn't B12? What if it was contaminated? What if it contained something that could cross the placental barrier and harm Emma? What if my wife, my beautiful, kind Sarah, who had never hurt anyone in her life, was dying because a power-hungry HOA president thought she knew better than medical professionals? I kept seeing Sarah's face when I'd walked through that door, the terror in her eyes, the way her hands shook as she tried to explain what had happened. The violation she must have felt when Karen grabbed her arm and forced that needle into her skin. 2 police officers arrived to take my statement. The older one, Officer Davis, had kind eyes but a stern expression. The younger one, Officer Martinez, looked barely out of the academy, but his anger at what had happened was evident. I told them everything, every detail of Karen's harassment over the past months, her claim of being a retired nurse, the forced injection, where she said she got the medication, how Sarah had explicitly said no but Karen had ignored her. "She didn't just give my wife an injection," I said, my voice breaking with emotion. "She assaulted her. She violated her. Sarah is 7 months pregnant, and this woman grabbed her and stuck a needle in her arm against her will. What if our baby dies because of this? What if Sarah dies? We'll need to speak with Mrs. Whitmore," the older officer said. "Do you know her address?" I gave it to them. "Please, just, make her tell you what she gave my wife. We need to know if our baby is going to be okay." The younger officer's jaw tightened. "Sir, what she did is assault. Possibly more, depending on the outcome. We'll get to the bottom of this." An hour later, Dr. Martinez came out to see me. Her face was grave, and I could see the concern etched in every line of her expression. She gestured for me to sit down, which only made my anxiety worse. "Doctors never ask you to sit unless the news is bad. Mr. Patterson, your wife is stable for now, but we have some serious concerns that I need to discuss with you." She pulled up a chair across from me, her hands folded professionally in her lap. "We've sent blood samples to the lab for a full toxicology screen, and we're also running cultures to check for bacterial contamination. Whatever was in that injection, it's causing some unusual reactions in your wife's body." "What kind of reactions?" My throat felt tight. I could barely get the words out. "Sarah's blood pressure is elevated, significantly higher than it should be for her stage of pregnancy. Her white blood cell count is climbing, which suggests her body is fighting an infection. And most concerning, we're seeing some irregular patterns in the baby's heartbeat. The fetal monitor is picking up episodes of tachycardia followed by bradycardia. That means the heart rate is fluctuating between too fast and too slow. I felt the room spin around me. What does that mean for Emma? For my daughter? Dr. Martinez's eyes were sympathetic but honest. It means that whatever substance entered your wife's bloodstream is affecting the baby too. The placenta is supposed to act as a protective barrier, but some substances can cross it. We're monitoring them both very closely. The next few hours are critical. We've given Sarah some medications to try to counteract any potential toxins and antibiotics to prevent infection, but until we know exactly what she was injected with, we're essentially working in the dark, treating symptoms rather than the cause. I buried my face in my hands. Our baby. Our precious baby girl who we'd already named Emma. Who Sarah sang to every night. Who kicked whenever she heard my voice. She was in danger because of Karen's arrogance and cruelty. The police didn't waste time. Within 2 hours, they had obtained a search warrant for Karen's home. What they found there made my blood boil. Detective Morrison came to the hospital to brief me personally. Mr. Patterson, we found over 50 vials of various medications in Mrs. Whitmore's home. None of them prescription, all ordered from overseas websites. Some of them were steroids. Some were antibiotics. And some. He paused, his expression dark. Some were veterinary medications. Not meant for human use at all. Veterinary? I couldn't breathe. She gave my pregnant wife animal medication. We're still testing everything to determine exactly which vial she used on your wife. But Mr. Patterson, this isn't the first time. We've spoken to other residents in your neighborhood. Karen Whitmore has been giving people injections for months. She told everyone she was helping them, that she knew better than their doctors. How many people? I asked. At least 12 that we know of so far. Most of them didn't report it because she's the HOA president and they were afraid of retaliation. One elderly man ended up hospitalized last month with a severe infection. We're reopening that case now. The rage I felt was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. This woman had been playing doctor with people's lives, with my wife's life, with my unborn daughter's life, and no one had stopped her because they were afraid of HOA fines and neighborhood politics. What happens now? I asked. She's been arrested. We've charged her with assault, practicing medicine without a license, and we're waiting on the toxicology results to determine what other charges might apply. If your baby is harmed in any way. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. That night was the longest of my life. Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness, moaning in pain. The monitors tracking Emma's heartbeat would periodically alarm, sending doctors and nurses rushing in. Each time, I felt my heart stop. At 3 a.m, Dr. Martinez returned with the toxicology results. Her face was pale. Mr. Patterson, the injection contained a cocktail of substances. There was some B12, yes, but it was contaminated with bacteria. There were also traces of a steroid called dexamethasone, which can be dangerous in pregnancy, and something else we're still trying to identify. The contamination is causing an infection in your wife's bloodstream. An infection? The word felt like a knife to my chest. We've started her on strong antibiotics, but there's a risk it could lead to sepsis. And we're very concerned about the baby. The infection is causing inflammation in the placenta. If it worsens, we may need to deliver Emma early to save both of their lives. She's only 7 months, I whispered. It's too early. I know. We're doing everything we can to avoid that. But Mr. Patterson, you need to prepare yourself. The next 24 hours will tell us everything. I went back to Sarah's room and sat beside her bed. She was sleeping fitfully, her forehead damp with fever. I held her hand and let the tears fall. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I should have protected you. I should have done something about Karen sooner. I should have. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. Despite her pain, despite everything, she tried to smile. Not your fault, she breathed. Love you. I love you too. So much. You and Emma both. You're going to be fine. You have to be fine. But as the hours crept by, Sarah got worse. Her fever spiked to 104 degrees. The infection was spreading. At 7 in the morning, her blood pressure dropped dangerously low. Dr. Martinez made the call. We need to deliver the baby now. It's the only way to save them both. They rushed Sarah into surgery. I wasn't allowed in the operating room because it was too dangerous, so I stood outside the doors, shaking, praying to any god that would listen. 20 minutes later, I heard it. The most beautiful sound in the world. A baby's cry. Dr. Martinez came out, still in her surgical gown, and she was smiling. You have a daughter, Mr. Patterson. She's small, only 3 pounds, 2 ounces, but she's breathing on her own. She's a fighter. And Sarah? I asked, afraid of the answer. She's stable. We're treating the infection aggressively. She's not out of the woods yet, but she's stable. They let me see Emma in the NICU. She was so tiny, so fragile, covered in wires and tubes. But she was alive. Her little chest rose and fell steadily. Her tiny fingers curled around my finger when I touched her hand. Hey there, Emma, I whispered. I'm your daddy. Your mama and I have been waiting to meet you. You came a little early, but that's okay. You're perfect. Absolutely perfect. A nurse smiled at me. She's doing remarkably well for her gestational age. Better than we expected. She's strong, like her mother. I stayed with Emma for an hour before going back to check on Sarah. She was in recovery, still unconscious but stable. I sat beside her and held her hand. She's beautiful, Sarah. Emma is beautiful. She has your eyes. She's going to be okay. You're both going to be okay. The next week was a blur of hospital rooms, doctor consultations, and police interviews. Sarah slowly recovered from the infection, though she remained weak. Emma stayed in the NICU, growing stronger each day. Karen Whitmore's true history came to light during the investigation. She had indeed been a nurse, for 2 years in the 1980s before her license was revoked for stealing medications from the hospital where she worked. She had been living a lie for decades, pretending to be a medical professional while endangering anyone who believed her. The other victims came forward. Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman with diabetes, whom Karen had given insulin that turned out to be saline mixed with an unknown substance. Mr. Rodriguez, who Karen had injected with antibiotics that caused a severe allergic reaction. A teenage boy whom she'd given growth hormones that were actually contaminated steroids. Every story made me angrier. Every victim made me more determined to see justice done. Detective Morrison kept me updated. The DA is building a strong case. With your wife's situation and the baby being born premature, Karen is facing serious charges. Assault with a deadly weapon, practicing medicine without a license, child endangerment, and more. She's looking at significant prison time. Good, I said. She deserves every second of it. 3 weeks after Emma's birth, Sarah was strong enough to give her full statement to the police. I sat beside her as she recounted every detail of that terrible day. She didn't ask permission, Sarah said, her voice steady but her eyes filled with tears. She just grabbed my arm and injected me. I tried to pull away, but she held me tight. She said, "Stop being difficult. I know what's best for you." Like I was a child. Like my body wasn't my own. Like my baby didn't matter. The detective taking her statement looked angry. "Did she know you were pregnant?" Of course she knew. I'm 7 months pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant. It's obvious. She'd made comments about it before, saying I looked huge, that I must be eating too much, that I needed to take better care of myself. Sarah's voice broke. And then she nearly killed us both. I squeezed her hand. You don't have to continue if it's too hard. No, Sarah said firmly. I want to. I need to. Other people need to hear this. Emma needs to know, when she's older, that we fought for justice. Karen Whitmore's trial began 4 months later. Emma was home by then, healthy and growing, though she would need ongoing monitoring due to her premature birth. Sarah had recovered physically, but the emotional scars remained. The courtroom was packed. All of Karen's victims were there, ready to testify. The media had picked up the story. HOA President's Injection Nightmare was the headline in every local paper. Karen sat at the defense table, looking nothing like the imperious woman who had terrorized our neighborhood. She wore a simple gray suit, her hair pulled back, her face carefully neutral. But when her eyes met mine, I saw no remorse. Only anger that she'd been caught. The prosecution presented their case methodically. Medical experts testified about the dangers of the contaminated injection. Dr. Martinez explained how close Sarah and Emma had come to death. NICU specialists discussed Emma's premature birth and the long-term effects it might have. Then the other victims testified, one by one. Mrs. Chen, crying as she described the seizure she'd had from Karen's fake insulin. Mr. Rodriguez, showing the scars from the allergic reaction. The teenage boy, now self-conscious about the side effects of the steroids. Each testimony was heartbreaking. Each one showed the scope of Karen's delusion and cruelty. When it was my turn to testify, I looked directly at Karen. You didn't just assault my wife. You didn't just endanger my daughter. You shattered our sense of safety. You violated the most basic trust, that our neighbors, our community, wouldn't deliberately harm us. My wife has nightmares. My daughter will grow up knowing that she nearly died before she even took her first breath, because someone thought their ego was more important than human life. Karen's lawyer tried to paint her as a confused elderly woman who genuinely thought she was helping people. Mrs. Whitmore has a history of community service. She was simply trying to assist her neighbors in the way she knew how. She never intended to cause harm. But the prosecution destroyed that argument. They showed evidence of Karen ordering medications online after researching their effects. They showed emails where she bragged to friends about being better than real doctors, because she wasn't afraid to do what was necessary. They proved she knew exactly what she was doing and simply didn't care about the consequences. Sarah's testimony was the most powerful. She took the stand, her voice clear and strong. Karen Whitmore looked me in the eye and told me I needed her help. When I said no, when I tried to pull away, she forced that needle into my arm anyway. She treated me like I was her property, like my body was hers to experiment on. She didn't care that I was pregnant. She didn't care that I had a doctor. She didn't care about me at all. Sarah's voice cracked, and she paused to compose herself. The entire courtroom was silent. I felt that poison enter my bloodstream. I felt my body start to react. Within an hour, I knew something was terribly wrong. The pain, the fever, the fear that my baby was dying inside me, that will haunt me forever. And when they rushed me into surgery, when they pulled Emma out of me 2 months early, when I saw her tiny body covered in tubes and wires. Sarah's tears fell freely now. I didn't know if she would live. I didn't know if I would live. All because Karen Whitmore thought she was more important than medical science, more important than my choices, more important than my daughter's life. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even the judge looked moved. Karen's lawyer had no questions for Sarah. What could he possibly ask? The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, their faces were grim. On the charge of assault with a deadly weapon, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of practicing medicine without a license, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of child endangerment, we find the defendant guilty. The list went on. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Karen's face remained impassive, but her hands clenched the table so hard her knuckles turned white. At sentencing, the judge looked at Karen with barely concealed disgust. Mrs. Whitmore, you took it upon yourself to play God with people's lives. You ignored their autonomy, their rights, and their safety. You caused immeasurable harm to multiple individuals, but most egregiously to Sarah Patterson and her daughter Emma. The judge paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Your actions were not those of a confused woman trying to help. They were deliberate, dangerous, and delusional. You showed no remorse during this trial. You demonstrated no understanding of the gravity of your crimes. Therefore, this court sentences you to 10 years in state prison, to be followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are permanently banned from purchasing or possessing any medications or medical devices. You are permanently banned from serving in any community leadership position, including homeowners associations. 10 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Karen was led away in handcuffs, finally stripped of her power, her authority, her ability to hurt anyone else. That was 2 years ago. Emma is now a happy, healthy 2-year-old with Sarah's dark eyes and my stubborn chin. She's small for her age, a reminder of her early arrival, but her doctors say she's thriving. She loves to sing, to play with her stuffed animals, and to help Sarah in the garden. Sarah still has moments where the trauma resurfaces. Sometimes she'll freeze when someone comes to our door unexpectedly. Sometimes she'll have nightmares about that day. We're both in therapy, working through it together. We moved out of Maple Ridge Estates 6 months after the trial. We couldn't stay in that house, in that neighborhood, where everything had gone so wrong. Our new home is in a quiet area with no HOA, just friendly neighbors who respect boundaries and understand the word no. The other victims of Karen's injections are healing too. We've formed a support group, meeting monthly to check in on each other and share our journeys toward recovery. Mrs. Chen says it helps to talk to people who understand. Mr. Rodriguez has become an advocate for stronger laws against unlicensed medical practice. As for Karen Whitmore, she's in a medium security prison 3 hours away. I don't think about her often anymore. She doesn't deserve space in my thoughts. My energy goes to my wife and daughter, to building a happy life, to making sure Emma grows up knowing she is loved, protected, and valued. But sometimes, when I watch Sarah cradle Emma, when I see them laughing together, when I witness the bond between mother and daughter that Karen nearly destroyed, I feel a surge of gratitude. Gratitude that they both survived. Gratitude that justice was served. Gratitude that we have tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days to come. This experience taught me something important: never ignore abuse of power, no matter how small it seems. Karen started with petty HOA complaints, but her need for control escalated until she was literally injecting people with dangerous substances. And people let her because she had a title, because she seemed authoritative, because they didn't want trouble. Speak up. Fight back. Protect yourself and others. Don't let bullies hide behind positions of authority. Don't let anyone violate your rights or your body, no matter what excuse they give. And if you're reading this, and you're in a situation where someone is overstepping boundaries, where someone is using their power to control or harm you, please get help. Call the police. Talk to a lawyer. Tell someone you trust. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to be polite to someone who is hurting you. Sarah tried to be nice to Karen. She tried to avoid conflict, especially while pregnant. And she nearly paid for that kindness with her life and Emma's life. There's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. There's a difference between keeping the peace and enabling abuse. Know that difference. Honor it. Your safety is more important than anyone's ego. Emma will grow up hearing this story, though we'll wait until she's old enough to understand it. She'll know that she's a fighter, that she survived against terrible odds. She'll know that her mother is strong and brave. She'll know that sometimes bad things happen, but good people fight back, and justice can prevail. I look at my daughter now, playing with her blocks on the living room floor, and I'm overwhelmed with love. She's giggling, stacking the blocks higher and higher until they tumble down, and then she claps her hands in delight. Sarah sits beside her, smiling, healthy, alive. She catches my eye and mouths, "I love you." "I love you too," I say. This is what Karen Whitmore tried to take from us. This joy, this love, this future. But she failed. We're here. We're together. We're healing. And that's the greatest victory of all. To anyone reading this who has faced similar trauma, who has been violated, who has been made to feel powerless, I want you to know something important. Your story matters. Your pain is valid. And you have the strength within you to fight back and reclaim your life. Sarah and I didn't think we'd survive those dark days in the hospital. We didn't think we'd ever feel safe again. We didn't think justice was possible. But we fought for it. We stood up. We refused to let Karen's actions define the rest of our lives. There are still hard days. Sarah still jumps when the doorbell rings unexpectedly. I still feel my heart race when Emma has a doctor's appointment, remembering those terrifying moments in the NICU. But those moments are becoming fewer and further between. We've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days are better than others. Some days Sarah cries for no apparent reason, and I hold her while she releases the trauma that still lives in her body. Some days I look at Emma and feel overwhelming rage at what was almost stolen from us. But we're learning to sit with those feelings, to honor them, to let them move through us rather than consuming us. Our therapist told us something profound: trauma changes you, but it doesn't have to destroy you. You get to choose who you become after surviving something terrible. We choose love. We choose strength. We choose to be present for each other and for Emma. We choose to use our story to help others who might be suffering in silence. The support group we formed has become a lifeline for all of us. We meet on the first Saturday of every month, sharing our progress, our setbacks, our victories. Mrs. Chen brought her grandchildren last month, and watching them play with Emma reminded us all of why we fought so hard. Mr. Rodriguez just got engaged to a wonderful woman who accepts and supports him through his healing journey. The teenage boy who Karen injected with steroids is now in college, studying pre-med because he wants to become the kind of doctor who truly listens to patients and respects their autonomy. We're all rebuilding our lives, one day at a time. And we're doing it together, proving that even the deepest wounds can heal when you have support, love, and the courage to keep going. If you or someone you know has been the victim of medical assault or abuse of power, please reach out to local authorities or medical advocacy groups. You are not alone, and what happened to you was not your fault. Always remember, your body is yours. Your choices are yours. No one, not a neighbor, not an authority figure, not anyone, has the right to violate your autonomy. Stand strong. Speak up. Survive. And when justice comes, embrace it.